Stocks are sharply lower with financials and realty being the big drags today, even as consumer durables and utilities see some green.
Novelis announces its IPO pricing of $18 to $21 per share, implying an equity valuation of $11 to $12.5 billion. This tops most analyst estimates and is a positive for Hindalco.
Sources tell CNBC-TV18 that Paytm boss Vijay Shekhar Sharma may be engaging with prospective investors for them to buy a slice in the payments player. Now, the talks are likely at an exploratory stage, and Paytm and Adani have denied any deal talks.
Crude scales to a 4-week high on U.S. summer demand, rising tensions in the Middle East and lower OPEC plus crude exports. The market remains on edge ahead of the OPEC plus June 2nd meeting.
Hello and welcome. You've tuned into Business Lunch. I'm Nisha Podar, and with me, as always, is Sonia Shenoy. Now, Sonia, the market, the volatility, nervousness, and today it's a lot more pronounced that we have seen in the past. And at the moment, the entire screen is in the red, Sonia.
Oh, it is in the red, but I'm not too concerned because I think this is more election-related jitters. It always happens, Nisha. Towards election time, the market gets a bit jittery. There's a bit of volatility. But if you look at the larger picture, right, if this government comes back into power as the, the narrative is or all the chatter is, then this market is definitely going up. It has already, of course, priced in a lot of it. But for now, there is some election-related jitters, some exit poll-related jitters that this market is factoring in, which seems to be par for the course. But let's do one thing. Let's get you some top news stories right now. Paytm is locked in upper circuit after sources have told CNBC-TV18 that Vijay Shekhar Sharma has reached out to potential investors to buy a stake in 197 Communications. Ritu joins in with the latest. Ritu, over to you.
Well, yes, we've been given to understand from sources that Paytm's founder, Vijay Shekhar Sharma, has been in talks with potential suitors to buy a stake in 197 Communications, which is the parent entity of Paytm. And one of the suitors that Vijay Shekhar has sounded out is the Adani Group. But there is no clarity on the status of these discussions or any confirmation whatsoever if these talks are going to fructify. It also remains unclear so far on whether Vijay Shekhar Sharma is looking to sell stake or one of the other investors in 197 Communications. Because if you look at the shareholding pattern, Vijay Shekhar Sharma directly holds 9.1% stake in OCL. Another 10.28% is held by a firm registered by him called Resilient Asset Management in Netherlands. Now, if you recall, last August, Paytm had announced that Vijay Shekhar would acquire this 10.28% stake from their Chinese investor Antfin through an off-market transfer where Resilient will issue OCDs to Antfin without any actual cash transfer. So Antfin continues to hold these OCDs, which it can choose to redeem or convert at a later date if it wishes, depending on the contours of the agreement between the two parties, which have not been made public. Now, Antfin separately continues to hold 9.8% stake in OCL. Other key investors are CEF Partners, which holds nearly 15% stake through its entities, the company's directors, with 9.34% stake, and so on. A quick word on Paytm Payment Bank as well, where OCL, of course, holds 49% stake. There are no talks, we understand, to sell any direct stake in the bank just yet, and until all customer deposits in the bank and wallet are fully moved out, even the regulator is unlikely to proceed with next steps or any action otherwise. The Adani Group has called reports of acquiring any stake in OCL baseless and false, while Paytm clarified to exchanges that the company is not engaged in any such discussions.
All right. Thank you so much, Ritu, for getting us all those details. Next up, we are focusing on the biggest Nifty gainer today, that is Hindalco. In fact, we had broken this story some time back that it's $1 billion that Hindalco could be looking at raising from the Novelis IPO. And that's what now comes out clearly. Now, what we are looking at is Novelis IPO and NYSE listing. And some of those details have come out at the top end of the price band that the company has revealed, well, it's $12.6 billion of valuation that they're trying to achieve. And with the green shoe option included, Hindalco could be gaining or for raising about $1 billion by selling 7.5 to about 8.5% stake in the company. Now, remember, one important thing to note here is that Hindalco is the parent company. It holds 100% of Novelis, and even after this particular IPO in which it raises close to $1 billion, it would still be left with about 91-92% stake in the company. Now, what it does for the company for future, there are three important aspects, which is really a winner for Hindalco in this particular case, and that's what is reflecting on this particular stock price as well. One, monetization and close to $1 billion of fundraise. Second is going to be the valuation of SOTP of Novelis, which is baked into Hindalco, and with Novelis SOTP increasing, it will impact the stock of Hindalco. And the third one is very critical for a capex heavy company and a manufacturing company, which is ability to raise funds in the future as well, because they have a listed entity, and backed by that, a lot more fund or leverage can be taken as well. So these are the three most important things, and also these are the reasons, Sonia, why JP Morgan and CLSA have upgraded Hindalco on the back of these valuations and numbers coming out.
Okay, that's a big mover today, right? And thanks, Nisha,
and also not to forget that it's the first big US listing by an India-owned company. So it is a big thing for even our country in terms of going out and making their mark.
Okay, so big mover coming in there for from Hindalco, and big volume action as well on the stock. Don't lose sight of that. I think over 1 crore shares are being traded right now on Hindalco. In fact, 1.5 crore shares as we speak. And remember, this stock has also rallied quite a bit. I mean, this in the last 2 months, actually, in the last 1 month, it's up 10%. This year, the stock is up about 16%. And in the last 1 year, it's a 72% rally that Hindalco has seen. Well, let's slip into a short break. When we come back, we'll focus on the Fed's rate trajectory. The Minneapolis Fed President Neil Kashkari believes that the Fed needs more time to assess where the U.S. economy is headed in order to decide on its next course of action. He also says that there is no real urgency to cut rates anytime soon. Listen in.
In the beginning of this year, just as Chairman Powell said, it has moved sideways, and that's raised questions in my mind. Is the disinflationary process continuing, or are we landing to more of a 3% inflation level? I think it's still too early to know, and we need to wait and see to get more confidence. What's unclear to me is maybe some of the dynamics of the reopening of the economy has raised what I call the neutral rate, or what we call the neutral rate, the policy stance that is the minimum level that we need to get to, where we're not stimulating or restraining the economy. If that neutral rate has gone up in the short run, then that means the policy would need to be even higher in order to get the inflation back down to 2%. That's very unknown right now. It's very hard to judge that in real time. And so I think we just need to take more time to assess where the economy is headed. I don't think we should rule anything out at this point. We are all committed to getting inflation all the way back down to our 2% target. The most recent inflation print that we got on the CPI data was marginally better than the earlier prints from the first 3 months, but still not where we need it to get to. So it wasn't getting worse, but we just need to wait and see. I think right now we're in a good position because the labor market remains strong in the U.S., so we have the luxury of being able to sit here until we gain confidence on where inflation is headed. Many more months of positive inflation data, I think, to give me confidence that it's appropriate to dial back. You know, the U.S. economy has remained remarkably resilient. GDP growth has been strong, much stronger than forecast. Most people thought that we'd be in a recession toward the end of last year. That didn't happen. Instead, we had very strong growth. U.S. consumers have remained remarkably resilient. The housing market has remained resilient. So I'm not seeing the need to hurry and do rate cuts. I think we should take our time and
Welcome back. You're watching Business Lunch on CNBC-TV18. As we head into the last phase of the Lok Sabha elections, CLSA has identified 54 companies which are perceived to be direct beneficiaries of Prime Minister Modi's policies. Hormuz is here with more details on all of that. Hormuz, over to you.
You know, CLSA has come out with a very interesting list of stocks which they call quote-unquote Modi stocks. So they've identified 54 stocks that they expect to be direct beneficiaries of the current government's policies if they are voted back to power. Now, what they say is that 90% of these Modi stocks have outperformed the Nifty over the last 6 months, and therefore they've called this market move over this in this near term election-driven rally, and they expect this outperformance to continue in these stocks if the current government is voted back to power. Now, which are these Modi stocks? I'll highlight some of them. L&T is one of them, but the majority of the names in there belong to the PSU space. Is NTPC, NHPC, PFC, ONGC, the city gas distributors, IGL, MGL make the entry there, and telecom stocks, of course, Reliance Industries, Bharti Airtel, Indus Towers, all find a name in this list of Modi stocks. Now, what CLSA also said is that this narrow election theme driven rally may see an end towards the month of June and July, and as a result banks are the best risk reward play in India right now for the second half of 2024. So beyond Modi stocks, the stocks that CLSA is betting on includes the financial names HDFC, Axis, ICICI, IndusInd, Bajaj Finance is in the list as well, Zomato and Avenue Supermarts also completing that list. But what CLSA now believes is that after this election and the post-election euphoria dies down, investors may be confronted with a reality check, and they would realize that most of the positives in these stocks are already priced in, and as a result the less patient holders of these Modi stocks may rush for some profit booking after this. And they have pointed to a similar trend in 2014 and in 2019 as well, where the PSU stocks had topped out just a few weeks after the election results. So all in all, the 54 stocks that CLSA has identified, most of them belonging to the PSU space.
All right, Hormuz, thank you so much for getting us all those important details. Now, Nomura, on the other hand, surveyed about 150 investors on what they think is going to be the outcome from the year's elections and also the possible market impact of that. Hormuz, tell us more about that as well. That is one big question on everybody's mind, actually.
Not on the investors' mind, I guess, because the 150 investors who were surveyed on the Nomura, from this Nomura survey, believe 99.3% of them believe that the BJP is going to win this election in 2024. And now within these surveyed participants, 83% believe that the BJP will be able to secure a majority on its own. If you further break that number down, now there is a bit of a divergent opinion on how many seats the BJP would win in this election by itself. There have been a lot of numbers that have been thrown at us over the last 24 hours, ranging anywhere from 290 to 310. Now, what the street believes is, out of these 150 participants, 45% of them believe that it will be lesser than their 2019 tally of 303 seats, while 36% of them believe that it will be more than the 2019 tally. But the overall consensus is that the BJP would win 297 seats on its own, which is lesser than 2019, and the NDA together would win 344 seats, which is also slightly lesser than the 353 they won in 2019. Now, on the survey's impact on the economy, if the current establishment is voted back to power, the medium-term GDP growth, the participants see it anywhere between 7 to 8%. But if the India Alliance is voted back to power, they believe that economic growth, GDP growth might drop to 6.5%, and they also expect massive fiscal slippages in case the India Alliance is voted to power. Now, what they also say is that the market is factoring in an outright BJP win, and any other outcome besides that may be a negative surprise for the market, and this might trigger a BJP victory might trigger a short-term rally as well for the markets. Now, the sectors that may benefit if at all the current establishment is voted to power: infrastructure, capital goods, defense, sectors that the government has laid emphasis on pretty much so for the last 5 years, so they might be a beneficiary there. Now, what happens is, since the market is already factoring in a BJP win, if that happens, the index may see just a single-digit rally after the results. But if the BJP fails to secure an absolute majority, but the NDA government is in power, then there might be a correction of around 5%. But if the India Alliance is voted to power, an outcome that they see highly unlikely, but if that happens, the index may see a 20% correction similar to 2004. So a comprehensive survey there. The consensus is that the BJP would be winning this election. So all eyes now on the 1st and the 4th of June.
Okay, well, thanks a lot for that. The first phase of Mumbai's Coastal Road, though, was open to commuters in March earlier this year. Only a couple of months into the inauguration, the undersea section of the road has developed leaks and has started seeping ahead of the monsoon season. Definitely a security threat, a safety threat rather. Sandhya is at the Coastal Road in Mumbai to get us the latest on that. Sandhya, over to you.
A couple of days ago, some videos made round on social media that how water was seeping, in fact leaking in Mumbai's newly inaugurated Coastal Road. Right now we are in that very tunnel from where those videos were, and you can see certain marks. These are some of the marks, and this was the seepage, the leakage social media videos were referring to. We spoke to the BMC, and in fact, the CM of the state has also come up with a clarification. They have said that this is not some leakage, this is just a seepage from the expansion joints of the tunnel, and it does not pose any threat to the structural integrity of the structure of the tunnel. But the fact is that this particular tunnel is undersea. This is underwater, and water leaking from this tunnel is a cause of concern, and that has been raised by the opposition as well. BMC is now claiming that they are conducting an investigation in the matter, and they are going to do polymer grouting of these expansion joints to ensure that no more water seeps. But for now, BMC is not clarifying whether it's seawater, how exactly did it start leaking, and what kind of investigation it is conducting to ensure that this does not happen. There are multiple questions which are still unanswered by the BMC and the state government, but for now they are claiming it did not pose any threat to the safety of the tunnel. In Mumbai, with camera person Datta, this is Sandhya for CNBC-TV18.
All right. Thanks so much, Sandhya, for getting us all those important details. Now, moving on, storms lash across the northeast India as cyclone Remal gains strength, leaving a trail of destruction behind us as well. Now, storm and rainfall-induced landslides kills 37 across northeastern states of Mizoram, Nagaland, Assam, as well as Meghalaya. The landslides have claimed 27 lives in Mizoram alone. Nagaland reported 4 deaths and over 40 houses damaged there, while Meghalaya gave a count of 2 deaths and also over 500 have been injured there. NDRF teams have been deployed to badly affected regions for relief and also rescue operations. Mizoram Chief Minister approved a relief fund of 15 crore rupees and granted ex gratia of 4 lakh rupees to the families of the deceased.
Okay, well, on to more national developments. News coming in a short while back. 2 children have been killed and 1 injured after a car in Karan Bhushan Singh's convoy ran over them in the Gonda district of Uttar Pradesh. The police have seized the car and taken the bodies of the children into custody. Remember, Karan Bhushan Singh is Brij Bhushan Singh's son and BJP's Lok Sabha candidate from the Kasirganj constituency. The car involved in the accident is registered in the name of Nadani Educational, which belongs to Brij Bhushan's family. Further investigation is underway in the incident. Okay, let's take a short break on that note. When we return, we'll get you the latest updates on the weather as North India has touched record high heat levels. Stay tuned.
Welcome back. You're watching Business Lunch, and take a look at the market. 0.5% down on Nifty 50, 22,770 odd levels. And Sensex too has lost closer to 500 points at the moment. Bank Nifty is the one which is really taking a deeper cut, and it's always the big financials and the blue chip banks which take a bigger hit in nervousness. So more than 1% down there. Midcaps far more resilient at the moment, flattish in trade. So keep an eye out on the market. But there's lots of news that we are really following up for you. Now, moving on to some weather updates. Very critical at this point because heat wave really continues to grip northern India, with Churu in Rajasthan really recording a temperature of over 50 degrees Celsius. And Delhi, meanwhile, reported an all-time high temperature of 49.9 degrees Celsius on Tuesday. Abhimanyu is right here to give us all the details.
The national capital is scorching. Delhi had recorded an all-time high maximum temperature of 49.9 degrees Celsius yesterday, whereas Churu in Rajasthan had recorded India's highest temperature yesterday, which was over 50 degrees Celsius. However, this heat wave currently in North India is expected to ebb by the 30th of May, as some western disturbances in form of a relief are expected to bring in thunderstorms and rain to bring down temperatures in the northern plains. As far as the onset of monsoon is concerned, it is expected to come in North India at the usual time. It is expected to reach Delhi by the 29th of June and is expected to reach Rajasthan by the 7th of July. The monsoon projections have been predicted as above normal by the IMD. However, there are spatial differences. Northeastern India is expected to have a below normal monsoon, whereas central India and peninsular India are expected to have an above normal monsoon, amidst several reports which were doing the rounds since the past couple of months that the reservoir levels in southern India had dropped considerably even before the onset of summers.
Okay, this is a crazy situation, right? The kind of heat waves that we're seeing across the country. We continue to also watch the developments in West Asia. The United States has announced that they will not change their policy towards Israel after Sunday's deadly strike on a Palestinian camp. They called the incident tragic but said it did not cross their red lines, which would see further aid withheld. This happens as Israeli tanks push into the city center of the Rafah area in Gaza, despite international calls to stop the offensive. NBC's Alice Barr files this report.
Israeli tanks pushing into the center of Rafah, according to an NBC News crew on the ground, raising urgent questions over whether Israel has crossed President Biden's red line, warning against a full-scale assault on the densely populated southern Gaza city.
We have not seen them smash into Rafah. We have not seen them go in with large units, large numbers of troops. We're going to watch this hour by hour.
The Biden administration responding as horrific images from a weekend airstrike at a Rafah tent camp for displaced families trigger fresh outrage.
It's horrific, it's heartbreaking, and it needs to stop. We also have to remember that we are supporting Israel in their fight against Hamas.
Israel says it targeted and killed 2 Hamas commanders, but in the process, an Israeli official tells NBC News it appears an IDF bomb ignited a gas tank, sending flames sweeping through the camp, killing at least 45 people, many of them women and children, according to the emergency services in Hamas-run Gaza, and injuring hundreds more. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu promising an investigation into what he initially called a tragic mishap.
We will be watching those results closely, and we will continue to emphasize to Israel their obligation to comply fully with international humanitarian law.
At the same time, the U.S. military forced to suspend aid deliveries by sea into Gaza because a temporary pier was damaged in bad weather. Another blow in Gaza's dire humanitarian crisis.
Israel is showing no signs of complying with the United Nations top court's order that is largely symbolic to halt that Rafah military operation. It comes as Spain, Norway, and Ireland all formally recognized a Palestinian state, another sign of Israel's increasing international isolation. In Washington, Alice Barr, NBC News.
Very unfortunate there, the situation in Gaza, especially in the Rafah area. But getting back to our markets, we leave it with a cut of about 111 points. So the market has not gotten any worse through the course of the day. If anything, there's been a slight recovery. But important to also point out that the Bank Nifty continues to be under pressure, down about 550 odd points, while the Midcap index has flattened out. So it would be interesting to see if the dips get bought in the latter half of trade, considering that these are just about, pre-election jitters ahead of the exit polls. So maybe there could be some buying on dips as well. Don't lose sight of that. That's all we have on Business Lunch. Midcap Radar comes up next.